Hello, people. So this is one of those videos I'm going to be doing a little bit of maneuvering because the source I'm using, I've got a split screen. You can't see that, but on my side, it's a split screen. It's also the early hours of the morning, so I'm trying not to raise my voice too loud, whilst hopefully loud enough that you can hear. Um, Usually, when I talk about the issue of police abusing their power or police corruption, and I think corruption takes the form of actual corruption as well as moral corruption. Um, But usually when I talk about that, it's in the context of violence or brutality. But in this case, it's not an act of physical violence. It's more about an attitude, and I think an attitude that exposes a very regressive mindset in too many police officers. Now, the incident in question was in Seattle, Washington State. Um, but there's been similar incidents in the UK, so it's not totally alien to this country. It's not. The incident in the UK that I think is similar to this, about 2 years ago, I think it was now, two Metropolitan Police officers were eventually fired because they were seen joking about two sisters who were murdered. It was a high profile case. Now, in that case, they were fired. In this case, not so. I'm going to read out this link. It's from the New York Post, but this has been, it's a big story in Washington State right now. And this report's by Catherine Dunleavy. So just bear with me because it's important to get all the background details here. I'm a little bit late on this one. It actually happened a few weeks ago, but I think it's important to talk about, and I think it's far from over. The Seattle cop who joked about the death of a graduate student who was fatally struck by a police cruiser while crossing the street defended his callous remarks in a statement released Friday. Actually, earlier when I saw this, I thought he was going to make some groveling apology. No such thing. Officer Daniel Auderer, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, it's Auderer, claimed his cold hearted laughter at 23-year-old Janavi Kandula's death and jokes that the city should just write a check were taken out of context during a private call he didn't know was being recorded by his department issued body camera. The cop had just responded to the January 23rd fatal crash and was speaking with Seattle police officers Guild President Mike Solon to update him when he made the remarks. She is dead, Auderer says before bursting out laughing. No, it's a regular person, he says, referring to Kandula. The young woman was struck and killed by a police car driven by Officer Kevin Dave, who was reportedly going 75 miles per hour in a 25-mile-per-hour zone while responding to a different high priority call. Well, that we can maybe give some leeway. It may have been an emergency call, but clearly a young woman died. It's a serious incident. It should absolutely be investigated. I don't know what happened in terms of the investigation of that itself, but this is something else. This is, the attitude of another officer responding to it. Auderer, who is the guild's vice president. So this isn't some low-level beat officer. This guy is actually the vice president of the Seattle Police Union. Told Solon that he did not believe a criminal investigation was being conducted because Dave wasn't driving out of control. At the end of the disturbing clip, Auderer cackled that the city should just pay for the devastation one of its officers called $11,000. She was 26 anyway, he said, misstating the victim's age. She was actually 23. She had limited value. She had limited value. That's what this lowlife says about this young woman. After learning that his insensitive quips were in the hands of the department, Auderer submitted an August the 8th letter to the Officers Guild defending his actions, not expressing remorse, defending his actions, and requesting an expedited employee misconduct investigation. The union said Friday. There's a now widely publicised image of him going around. Um, Auderer claimed he was responding to comments made by Solon that were not picked up by the cameras, in which he questioned what crazy arguments lawyers could spin the tragedy into surrounding the value of human life. I respond with something like, "She's 26 years old. What value is there? Who cares?" Auderer stated. I don't know how this guy. I'm interrupting this, like my quotation of this report, but how he could say that's taken out of context to me is deranged. It's so clear what he said, and I've heard the audio of this. He clearly thinks it's amusing. This is not a case of something being taken out of context. I intended the comment as a mockery of lawyers. I was imitating what a lawyer tasked with negotiating the case would be saying and being sarcastic to express that they shouldn't be coming up with crazy arguments to minimize the payment. I don't buy that for a second. I think he basically has a callous disregard for this young woman's life, and he's saying, "Oh, it's an inconvenience. One of my fellow officers is going to get heat from these slick lawyers." I think that's what his mentality is. I really do. Auderer asserted that his laughter was aimed at the ridiculousness of how incidents are litigated, before pointing out he didn't realize his private conversation was being recorded. Oh, boo hoo! He basically regrets that he got caught. And as for the ridiculous of the legal system, well, that in itself says a lot. His attitude is basically we should be above account. Like I say, maybe the incident, the officer wasn't being reckless. Maybe there was some situation where he had to drive at that speed. But the fact of the matter is, a young woman lost her life, and it may have been an accident, but still needs to be investigated. And taken seriously, not trivialized the way this low life is doing. I'm disgusted by it. Uh, I understand that without context, the comment could be interpreted as horrifying and crude. Without context, the comment is insensitive to the family of the victim, when in reality, I was involved in the conversation regarding the callousness of the legal system, he said. But he's not talking about callousness towards the victim. He's talking about callousness towards, in his mind, police officers. He doesn't give a damn about the victim. The Officers Guild backed up Alder's claims of innocence. Well, of course they did. He's their boss. And he's the vice president, stating that the existing video that gained viral status in the immediate wake of its release fails to explain the full story context. I think that's a cowardly excuse. There have been protests in Seattle over this. The Guild applauded Order for coming forward about the footage 1 month before it was publicly released, adding that more details surrounding the incident will be forthcoming. Applauded him for coming forward. All he's trying to do is save his own skin. I don't see that as integrity. I think he's just trying to, minimize complications from it. The footage was released by the Seattle Police Department in the interest of transparency 1 day after the deadly collision was also uploaded to the Seattle Police Department's YouTube page. Kandula's family said Wednesday it was truly disturbing and saddening to hear insensible comments that were made on the body camera footage. I mean, you know, I'd be a lot angrier than that if I was, a relative of her, if I was her father. The exchange student had arrived at Northeastern University in Seattle from India to pursue a Master's of Science Information Systems at the College of Engineering. She was due to graduate in December. She's 23 years old. Janavi is a beloved daughter and beyond any dollar value for her mother and family, the family said in a statement. We firmly believe that every human life is invaluable and should not be belittled, especially during a tragic loss. The Consulate General of India in San Francisco called the handling of Kandula's death deeply troubling. We have taken up the matter strongly with local authorities in Seattle and Washington state, as well as senior officials in Washington, D.C., for full investigation and action against those involved in this tragic case, the consulate said on X, formerly known as Twitter. The fatal collision is being investigated by the Seattle Office of Police Accountability, and the King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office is conducting a criminal review of the incident. And in another source, I heard that basically this I should say was published on, if you bear with me, this particular report was published on the 16th of September. So that's already a bit out of date. Apparently, the review, what actually happened was he was put on leave, paid leave, and they think that's punishment. I mean, what should really happen is this guy should be fired. And this is something very significant that also relates to this officer. Um, I'm just getting another source if you bear with me. Um, let's see, I'm opening various pages here, so just bear with me. Let's see, where are we? I mean, the thing about it being taken out of context, I don't think there's any context that could justify belittling it. If he's mocking lawyers, he would be mocking lawyers. He wouldn't be talking about her life being, of no value. He would be saying, "Oh, they're smuck lawyers" or something like that. I just don't buy that argument. I don't think this was taken out of context. I think he got exposed. And the fact that he's showing such arrogance and disregard for the public anger, I think says a lot. I think it says a lot about the police department. Um, let's see here. What's going on? Yeah, this is from the journalist Sean King. Um, he's put a link from something called Dub CRTV, and that must be a local source. But if this is accurate, SPD cop who laughed and joked about young girl who was killed has been the subject of 18 OPA investigations. That must be an oversight committee since 2014, costing the city over $2 million in lawsuits. This is from one officer. 18 investigations. That's why I don't believe this was taken out of context. This guy's a scumbag, as far as I'm concerned. And I see nothing to suggest that, there's anything that was taken out of context here. I think he was exposed. And I think the fact that they thought, oh, well, we can put him on leave and hope it sort of, it'll blow over. Paid leave, it's not punishment. He should be fired from the police in disgrace. But there is one thing, because there's an international component, I believe the young woman was an Indian national. Um, that's going to lead to tensions between, could even be seen as an international incident. I hope it doesn't escalate. That wouldn't be good for anyone. But if it puts more pressure on the SPD, then good. I think their attitude just reeks of corruption. The fact that they're defending this guy, it's absolutely disgusting. But this is a high profile incident. It's far, far, far from unique. I guarantee you that across America, and more than a few in Britain, there are officers who have this callous, desensitized attitude to citizens, to the lives of ordinary people. I just don't buy this out of context argument. And the fact that this guy has a long track record of investigations against him should speak for itself.